Hello, welcome to the Black Belt Project. I'm the virtual sensei at BlackBeltProject.com, where I teach you how to master your life one belt at a time. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to start getting everything out of your head. It's going to be a big part of what the Black Belt Project is all about, and I'm going to show exactly how to start doing that in this video. So let's get started. Okay, so in today's daily review, we're going to talk about how to start getting everything out of your head that you're storing in there and getting it down into an outside storage system. Our mind works so much better if it's clear of all the clutter. And I think I talked about this in one of my previous videos, where once your mind starts to just think of all the things it has to remember, it's almost like an old computer that gets so bogged down that it doesn't work at peak efficiency. And so in order for our brains to think of solutions and to guide us to a level of mastery that we need to get to, we've got to get all of that stuff that's in there out of our head and into that external storage system. Now, David Allen talks about this in his GTD system, but I don't think he takes it quite to the level that I'm going to take it here at the Black Belt Project. And at first you may think, oh, wow, this is pretty deep. I don't know what you're going to think, but I think once you kind of go through this process enough, you'll kind of buy into it. At least I hope that you do. So if you recall in the last video, I had made a list of my inboxes where all my stuff goes through, and I want to make sure I had them all listed, that I knew everything that I had to get to empty. And I tried to put them in an order from the easiest to empty to the hardest. And so like getting my mail is an easy one. Getting my physical paper inbox to empty is probably the hardest possible one. So if you remember, I made a list and then I printed that list out. And so I've expanded on that list. And so here I've got more details in my list. And so I've labeled it now Black Belt Project inboxes. And then I've got a section for each of the areas. And each section, so like here, if you can see this on the screen, you'll see that I have 3 places that I get mail from. And then underneath that, I've listed all the steps that it takes to get my mailbox to empty. And then underneath that, you're going to see this thing where I put Black Belt level. Now, the idea here is that we're going to get one item of our system to a Black Belt level, and then we're going to move it down the process, down our list. And this is how you get everything to Black Belt. You start with one little small component of it, and then you get that to where it's Black Belt, and then you move on to the next thing. So while I've got all of my mail emptied and cleared out and all the paper in my inbox, when we get down to the physical inbox, I don't have that to 0, and I don't have all the procedures, so I don't have that to Black Belt. But I can tell you, I've been there, I know how to get there, and this is exactly how you do it. So you start at the top and you get something to Black Belt, and then you move it down. So then what I did is I printed this list out. I got it in 3-hole punch, and then I've got it in a little binder here. So initially we're just going to keep these, let me grab this here, these lists in a binder. And then I'll have them safe, and then I can put that in my briefcase. And then when I get ready to collect, I can go right to my list. It's almost like a set of instructions. Picture it like a recipe. Now, the way these checklists work, they're kind of read, review, or they're kind of do and then review. So, I might not look at each step. I might just intuitively know. After a while, I'll just know. But at first, when I'm first learning, I'll look at these steps and I'll try and put them in the exact order that I do them in and the most efficient way, and make sure that I've listed every single step. This is how you get everything out of your head. So this is the beginning of it. And eventually, right now, these are on paper, but we'll find a way to get them into more of an electronic system as we move down the line. But I like to get them on paper first. Maybe I'm just old school, but it just gives me something that I can look at a lot easier and just kind of go through the list. But the big concept here is to get everything out of your head and then start thinking in terms of getting like the first section to a Black Belt level. And then you can kind of count that as a victory. Then once you go into your collection phase, each time, if you know you're at Black Belt level to that level, you're going to want to make sure that you don't go back. So if I'm black belt here, the next time I collect, I want to make sure that I get to here and keep that to black belt. And that even if I only get just a little bit more to black belt, that's better than nothing. And so we want to kind of push this down. But once we set that bar, that's our standard, then we don't let it slide back. We keep it moving down the list. Now, the other thing I did here on these things is I had a couple of items that I made a list of. So I had a list of email addresses. I had a list of domain names. I had a list of a couple other things, phone numbers. And so I just made sure that I made a few lists. So as part of the procedures list, we're also going to have some checklist of just items that, you know, I need to remember, but I don't need to remember them here. And so, like, I have a list of phone numbers. I have a list of email addresses, and I got a ton of those. And the other thing that I did in my hour and some of the out of the hours, I spent a lot of time kind of working on consolidating all of my email into one email account instead of having them all over the place. And so getting those email those inboxes down to as few as possible is part of the black belt process here too. So anyway, the main point of this video is to start thinking in terms of getting every single thing out of your head that you can. And we're going to take it a lot farther than you've probably seen before. I always like to point out, if you ever watch football, you see these coaches on the sideline, they got this big old square sheet that has every decision that they need to make on it. And during the game, they've already pre-thought out everything that could happen in the game, and all their decisions and everything they've already decided to do is on that. And that's kind of the same kind of concept. So the other benefit of getting these down on paper is that once you see what done looks like, you know, like it's only 10 steps or whatever it is, you've already pre-thought out what you need to do. There's no thinking about what the next step is. You've already figured out the next step. And so it's a lot easier to do the next step when you know what it is and you don't even have to think about it. You just go, okay, well, that's the next step. Now, as we go on, some things are going to get bigger. Some of the tasks are going to get bigger. We're going to want to kind of take those tasks and make them all of about equal size. So anyway, today's video, start getting everything out of your head, start making these lists. One of the ways that I did it while I was doing it was I just had the computer open, and as I did a step, I just went to my computer on my list and I just typed it in. Or you could use a yellow pad or a piece of, you know, a pen. However you want to do it, just start writing those steps down and getting them down into your checklist. All right, well, I'm the Virtual Sensei. It's time for you to start mastering your life one belt at a time. I'll see you in the next daily review.